Okay, my name is Taye Malaku. I will be talking about large simulation of subsonic twin jets actually. And using this is basically numerical study, so it will be based on large eddy simulation using explicit filtering for the subgrid scale. So basically, there are several engineering applications of multiple jets. For instance, if we take the fuel injection systems, the industrial smokestack disposals, and for the case of aerospace vehicles, also like jet engines, we can find that there are several applications for multiple jets. So basically, then it is very important actually, so that we have some intimate understanding of what is happening for the interaction of this type of flows. For this case, I have given this schematic diagram of what I mean by twin jets. Actually, we have two circular round jets. This is a wall actually, and this is there fuel jets. Air is flowing from these two circular nodes to ambient atmosphere. So I have also given some visualization for the practical case, like this is aircraft actually which have two engines. So we are going to study actually using numerical schemes, but so far people have studied these things actually using experiment, and they have provided some mean quantities actually, like velocity quantities, pressure profiles. But unless otherwise, we have the turbulence characteristics also actually. Uh, we cannot say that we have the full understanding of this type of flows actually. So in this case actually, we are going to see some. We are going to give. I'm going to give some data actually regarding the turbulent characteristics on the, especially in this combined flow field region. So from these experiments, they have classified the flow region into three actually. So this converging region, merging region, and the combined region, where this classification is based on the velocity profiles if we take at different cross sections downstream distance actually. So if we compare, when we compare this type of flows actually with the single plane jets, the flow interaction, the development of the flow interaction and the noise characteristic of this type of flow is actually different. But I'm not going to talk about this noise. I'm just simply going to talk about the flow field development for these flows. So these are the governing equations. So these are the mathematical, as you all know, these are the mathematical equations which expresses the fundamental conservation principles, actually the mass conservation, the Newton's second law, and the energy conservation, where these are our model equation, and we have to solve this using numerically. For the numerical strategy we are using in this case is large eddy simulation using explicit filtering. The explicit filter, basically large eddy simulation, we know that most of the kinetic energy in a given flow are contained in the large scales contain the most of the energy in a given flow. So large eddy simulation is expected actually to properly or accurately calculate this large scale energy containing features. In addition to that, we can model these small scales using some explicit filtering. For this study, actually, I mean there are several type of large eddy simulation approaches, but for our study, we are using the explicit filtering by Matthew, in which it implements the subgrid model. The effects of the subgrid model is implemented by using the explicit filtering. And this type of approach actually, it has some peculiar requirements, like first we have to have some high resolution spatial discretization for finding the spatial derivatives, and we should have also high resolution for the low pass filter in order to filter out the high content frequencies from the given. And this filtering operation is done actually at every time step for the transport vehicles, transport quantities. So for the numerical scheme, we are using the 6-order compact scheme. This is the 6-order compact scheme, and we are using for the special low pass filter also 10th order, and time integration is actually done using RK2. So before we go solve the actual problem, actually first we have to validate the given numerical algorithm. For this end, actually I have simulated the isothermal turbulent round range at Reynolds number of 11,000, Mach number 0.9, and diameter of the nozzle is 0.061 meter. The computational domain is a rectangular box actually. So I have a rectangular box. This is the dimension of this is the dimension. This is the dimension of the computational domain without the buffer zone, and this is the total number of grid points inside. So we have calculated after reaching the stationary state. We have given the typical values of the single round jet. In this case, it is given in terms of the inverse center line velocity, which is given here, and the turbulent characteristics of the flow. This is so that we can have some confidence about the numerical approach we are going to use. So as you can see, we have the LAS and the experimental results have been compared, and we have relative excellent agreement with the experiment. So now we have the confidence, we can go and solve the actual problem. So this is the computational domain. We have these are the two round jets actually. This is wall. We have the diameter of the jets 0.07. Reynolds number will be 2.3 lakh, and the spacing between these two round jets will be 5D in terms of the diameter of the nozzle. We have the same initial condition as the earlier for the single cage. We have the tan hyperbolic initial velocity profile, so that it mimics a top hat velocity. And the computational domain will be like from this center line to this x direction. It will be 21D. The overall will be like 40D, 54D into 40D. The overall grid points inside this domain is 80 million grid. In addition, we have used the buffer zone actually to eliminate some space reflections from the outside. So when we go, and now I'm going to give the results of this simulation actually in terms of velocity profile, in terms of pressure distribution and the spreading of the jet. And finally, I will present the turbulent characteristics of the flow. So from this figure, this is the contour this snapshot of the Q criterion actually. It indicates that initially we have this potential core of the two jets actually, as you can see here. Then as we move downstream actually, this potential core, it will break down, and the two jets will meet, and actually they will have some interactions actually going on here. This is just to show how the flow field is developing, and if you go here actually, I have put the contour profile of the mean velocity profile as the symmetrical plane, the XY plane actually. So as you can see, initially we don't have anything here except for the two jets. But if we move downstream, actually the inner shear layers, these two inner shear layers, they will meet at some downstream distances, and the two jets, they will just interact. And as you can see, also the flow field also just spreads as we move downstream. So these are the velocity profiles at different downstream locations. This is the scale of the, we have the lateral dimension scaled by the half width of the jet. And this is the velocity, the local velocity scaled by the velocity as the exit plane actually. So like velocity of the jet. So as you can see initially, so this is the center line, I mean the line between the two jets. Actually these profiles are half of the full domain. So this is the center line. So as you can see initially, we don't have any velocity in the center line, but as we move downstream actually, this is at locations Y by D location of 3, this is 10, and this is 20, 28, 35, and 48. So initially there is no any velocity happening in this center line, and if we move further downstream actually, we can see that there is some magnitude of velocity coming here, appearing here, and this magnitude actually increases until it reaches finally at the combined flow region, where we have this single peak profiles actually for the whole domain. And one more thing we can observe from this plot is actually, if you see the maximum velocity profile, this is the position of the maximum velocity profile as we move forward, as we move downstream, these profiles, it is moving towards the center line. We can see the same thing in terms of the velocity vector. So initially we have these two velocity profiles of the jet close to the exit plane. Then these two velocity profiles actually they will just start merging around here. It will go like that, and the maximum velocity in the respective jet center also it will minimize actually. It will decrease, and finally, as we move further downstream, instead of having two profiles actually, we'll have only one big this profile, and we can see the decay of this maximum velocity in the respective jet center. It is given here. So, and we have also compared with the given experimental results. Actually, it is properly matching. And the other results which I want to share is the spreading of the jet flow field. Actually, the spreading into plane in this plane. Okay, the spreading in this plane, XY plane, and the of ZYZ plane. These are given in terms of the ratio of the local velocity by the jet velocity. And as you can see, we have almost linear type of growth for the flow field. And this is the pressure profile, similar to what we have seen in the velocity profile also. The minimum pressure, the location of the minimum pressure actually, it is moving towards the center plane. And this is the intensity profile and the Reynolds shear stress at different downstream distances. What we can take from here actually, the profile is in the inner shear layer. This is the inner shear layer, and the outer shear layer. If you see, there are some the magnitude of the streamwise turbulence intensity in this outer shear layer is relatively actually larger compared to the inner profile. The same thing also happens for the case of Reynolds shear stress. This thing happens actually for the downstream distance starting from 28 for both cases. And one more interesting result about this thing, if we plot the contour isovelocity curves of the flow field at different downstream cross sections, initially at downstream distance like this is 20. Yeah, 20, we have some sort of like horizontal ellipse. But if we go further downstream, actually, this thing is it has become like vertical ellipse. So it is like something similar to the case of elliptical vortex rings. And yeah. So this is a conclusion.
Question? No questions?
Yeah.
What's the mechanism?
To be honest, actually, as of now, we don't have, I mean, the actual explanation why it is happening, but these experimental people, they have said it is something similar to the case of elliptical vortex rings, actually. As it moves forward, it switches axis, yeah, so, but we don't have this.
Okay, we'd like to thank the speaker. Thank you.